my eyes. That was a strong red onion. Hi everyone, welcome to Cover Creations. My name's Gareth and this is my little corner of the internet for playing with my food. Today I'm going vegetarian. It's not something I thought I'd ever say, but just for today. Really do kind of like some vegetarian foods. I just don't think there's enough out there to really excite me. So I was reading through some menus and there was this thing on there called a vegetable crumble. And I thought, well, that sounds good. I'll give it a go. Turns out it was more like a fondue. So I decided, let's make my own. And I think this is an absolutely cracking recipe. Really hearty, really warm. So this is my vegetable crumble. We're going to start with the crumble part. So here I've got 150 grams of plain flour. And to that, a teaspoon of thyme. Like so. Good pinch of salt. And then 80 grams of butter, which I've measured out earlier. And then all we've got to do is get a bit messy. So we're just going to break that butter up with the fingers and kind of just knead it into the flour until you start getting a crumble. Just keep kneading it, squeezing it between your fingers until it starts to come into a crumb. At the start you'll just get like big lumps of it like that, but just break them up. As you gradually keep going through it, you'll start to see it turn into these beautiful little crumble bits. Brilliant. So the crumble's all done. Just whack that in the fridge. Now we're going to quickly prep our veg. So what I've got here, it's got one aubergine. We're just going to slice that. It's about a centimetre thick, just slightly more rings for now. Okay, once you've sliced your aubergine, we're just going to cut them in half so they fit easier in the tray. And then we've got an oven proof tray here. We're just going to throw them in. Don't have to worry at the moment. Just getting them out of the way. I'm going to turn our attention to the courgette. So we want to cut that exactly the same size, but we're just not going to cut this one in half. Just going to keep the rings whole. Those, brilliant. Now, mushrooms. Got 150 grams of chestnut mushrooms here, which, due to the size of the ones I've got, is 3. They are enormous. So for these, I'm just going to cut them in half. And they're pretty much exactly the same as the others. Done. As you can see, we've got quite a mound here. What we'll do is we'll kind of jiggle that around and try and push it down. But as this stuff cooks, it's going to slowly decrease and you should end up with the pan just perfectly full. So, last thing, second to last thing, a red onion. Okay, for this one, just want to chop the root end off just slightly. So it's almost still holding it together. We're going to cut each section in half so we've got quarters. And then I'm just going to chop that twice. We've got little triangular sections like that. They'll slightly break apart when you cook it, but we just want a few little decent sized bits. You know, this is a roasted vegetable dish. And then the last thing, you want 2 good sized cloves of garlic. So I've got 3 here because I've only got tiny ones. So we just break that one open, take the skin off, hopefully. And then all we're going to do is cut that into just 4 bits and whack that in. Oh my eyes, that was a strong red onion. Right. Okay, so moment with the onions over. We've got our enormous tray here of veg. We're just going to give it a squeeze down, give it a move about a bit until we can jostle it into position, just so it stays in the pan. As I said, as these roast, the whole thing will kind of sink right down. And then we just want to dribble over a good glug of olive oil, so about 4 tablespoons. Like so. Then all I'm going to do, grab that, whack it in a preheated oven, 180 degrees C for half an hour, and just give it a turn halfway through. So I'll pop these in, bring you back, and we can look at starting on the sauce. Right, so they're in the oven. Prepping for the sauce, nice and easy. We just want 4 plum tomatoes, and we're just going to chop them up rough. Perfect. So there's your tomatoes. For this, you could quite simply just use a tin of chopped tomatoes. Everything will be done pretty much exactly the same way. Just like to use the fresh ones because I figure we're doing a vegetarian meal. We want to use proper vegetables in it. So I'll meet you over the hob and I'll show you how we crack on. Okay, so this sauce couldn't be any simpler. What we're going to do is just going to grab our tomatoes, bring in a pan up to the heat, whack them straight in. Okay, they're just started coming up to the heat now, you can hear them. And then we're just going to add 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. Perfect. And give them a little bit of a mix around. It's lovely. And then we're just going to bring that up to the heat. So bring it up to almost a simmer, and then we rack our lid on and we just let them kind of, I wouldn't say boil down, but soften right down in that vinegar for about 10 minutes. And then we'll come back to it. And that just gives us a really nice deep base for that sauce. Okay, so the 10 minutes are up. And they've broken down really nicely. So it's going to be, let's say a sauce, it's going to be a kind of quite a lumpy sauce because you do have bits of tomato all through it. But what we're doing this for is we just want that tomato to kind of sink through everything. We don't want just the odd bit of tomato here and there. It will just become a vehicle for the herbs that we're going to put in. So to this, straight away we're going to add half a teaspoon of dried basil and half a teaspoon of dried oregano. And then 100 ml of water goes in there. And a tablespoon of tomato puree. There we go. It's about a tablespoon. Just going to give that a big mix around. Perfect. Crank the heat up a bit. I'm just going to bring that up to a simmer, and then we're going to put in some plain flour to thicken it. Okay, it's bubbling away nicely now. So we've got 2 teaspoons of plain flour here. And what I'm just going to do is add a little bit of water, probably about the same amount, a couple of teaspoons. Just going to mix that into a paste. What this should do is stop you getting, if you add the flour just straight in, you're going to get bigger lumps. It's just much easier to kind of whisk it up in a much smaller glass than it is in there. It's as simple as it is. And we're just going to get a bit of that hot liquid. I'm going to pour that in there. All for the same reason, just because it's much easier to whisk it up in here. There we go, it's not lumpy. So we just pour that in, give it a mix through. This will thicken really fast. So what we're going to do is just leave that simmering away 5 minutes. That's all it's going to take. You'll get a nice kind of thick sauce. Like I say, those flavours there are so strong with the balsamic and the herbs. Just doing the sauce like this allows it to kind of sink in through all of those veg. You just get that kind of, every bite's going to have that bit of flavour to it. So I'll leave that for the 5, come back to you. we can start thinking about putting things together, see? Brilliant, so it's had its 5 minutes. It's now getting really nice thickness. Not too thick, not too thin. And you pull it, just about see the bottom. So, very last thing, just want to add a pinch of salt and pepper, just season it a bit. Get a good pinch of salt in, a couple of grinds of pepper. Bit more salt, I think. Almost running out. Perfect. So that's done. We can turn that off. So that's taken us about 15 minutes. So stuff in the oven's about halfway through. So we can just lid on, leave that be. Let's have a look. Ooh, that's hot. Here we go. And that is ram-packed full. And I want it full. I don't want... Yeah, this is a vegetarian meal, but so often I've found with the vegetarian food, it's like a little bit of veg, lots of slop. I want something you can get your teeth into. And now what we're going to have to do, which this could go well, is just give it a stir around. Try and keep as much of it in there as possible. Okay, so we want to give that nice good push down, because we're going to put, oh, don't escape. Lovely. Now we can start just putting it together, and this is the exciting bit. This is where all that flavour really comes in. So we've got our tomato sauce. Give that a bit of a stir, and we're just going to pour that over the top. Get all that flavour in there. And just spread that around. And as that cooks, that will ooze through. It will carry all of that basil and the oregano and that balsamic kind of flavour to it. Just gradually leak through. You'll just taste so good every bite. Now you can see how full we are, so we're going to try and get the cheese on top. Most of the cheese on top. We've got 120 grams of cheddar here, and I'm using a really kind of extra mature cheddar because I want loads of flavour. So just going to sprinkle this all over the top. And that will melt down, but it will create like a layer of really kind of rich, cheesy flavour. And then the last thing, crumble on top. And this is with all that thyme in here, just adding loads more flavour. And now this is, I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to get all this on here. That is our crumble. Totally jam-packed. And it's going to be so good. So we're going to whack that back in the oven, 190 degrees, so turn it up a little bit. Leave that for 40 minutes and you'll get a beautiful crusted crumble on top. Some of that tomato will start bubbling up a bit around the edges as well and darken up. It's going to taste great. So let's get this in the oven and I'll catch you in 40. Okay, so 40 minutes is up. Let's have a look at what we got. Oh, that's good. There we have it. Really nice. Bubbling away like a proper crumble. For me, as vegetarian meals go, that one's fantastic. So I hope you like it. I hope you have a go. And I'd love to say any vegetarians out there, if you like this sort of thing, I mean, to me, this is about as good as I can make a vegetarian meal. But if there's some stuff out there that you really, really like, let me know. It would be fantastic to get some ideas off people, because I think even as a self-confessed carnivore, we should start eating a bit more veg and a bit less meat. Just allows us to put our money into stuff that's properly organic, properly well produced. So I hope you enjoy it. Hope you give it a go, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.